So admittedly, I am not a lawyer, but something tells me that this is not what a defendant wants his lawyer to be saying on the TV.
President Trump wanted to get to the truth. He desperately wanted to get to what happened during the 2020 cycle. He did it in the courtroom. He did it in lobbying legislatures. That's all First Amendment. And then at the end, he asked Mr. Pence to pause the voting for 10 days, allow the state legislatures to weigh in, and then they could make a determination to audit or re-audit or recertify. But what he didn't do is, send in the tanks, tell Mr. Pence don't go to the Capitol Hill, or do anything that would obstruct the due process of government.
So what you're saying is basically he did it. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the intense pressure Donald Trump was putting on his vice president to break the law literally part of one of the charges in his latest indictment, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding? But apparently it's all good because at least he didn't send in the tanks. Except that is precisely what Trump's co-conspirator number 4, Jeffrey Clark, said they were prepared to do. According to the indictment, quote, the deputy White House counsel reiterated to conspirator 4 that there had not been outcome determinative fraud in the election and that if the defendant remained in office nonetheless, there would be riots in every major city in the United States. Conspirator number 4, Jeffrey Clark, the man Trump wanted to name as the new attorney general, responded, quote, well, deputy White House counsel, that's why there's an Insurrection Act. Joining me now is Maya Wiley, president of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, and Soumya Dayananda, former federal prosecutor and former senior investigative counsel for the House January 6th Select Committee. Thank you both for being here. Ms. Dayananda, welcome to the show. You're at a disadvantage. You're not here at the table with Maya and me, so I'm going to let you go first here. Is that a good defense, saying he did it, but at least he didn't send in tanks to shoot people?
Joy, thanks for having me. The first thing I thought of when I saw that clip now from John Lauro is how much I can't wait to see the rebuttal the federal prosecutor in the courtroom will give to these types of arguments that John Lauro just put forth. And you're exactly right. You can't say that I did all of this unlawful conduct, but except I didn't send in these tanks. And I think what's even more important is he's asking Vice President Pence to pause the January 6th, the joint session that day, is in itself a crime. So it seems that he hasn't grasped exactly what John Eastman's theory was. It was both to delay the proceeding and reject the votes, both of which are unlawful and exactly the conduct of the charge count.
Yeah, and Maya, the other piece that he snuck in there is this First Amendment idea that actually is starting to become, on Fox, that's what they're doing all day, 24 hours a day, and they're trying to say free speech. But I'm not a lawyer again, but this to me seems like an argument that if I said, for instance, Whitney Houston was my cousin, and when she passed, she was going to leave me all her money. Now, I can say that, free speech, I can say whatever I want. But then if I, show up, at the hearings where she's giving out her assets with some fake documents and a will that says, no, she was supposed to give you all her money, and then I walk away with her money, that's fraud, right? My free speech doesn't protect me if I actually submit a certificate that's a lie and try to commit fraud. That's what he did.
Yeah.
And I passed law school right here, sitting at the table with
honorary degree. No, first of all, look, admission that I did an act, which was to try to interrupt vote counting. I just want to make very clear to listeners what that act is, not just the conspiracy to obstruct a congressional proceeding. That's exactly also what the civil rights count goes to, right? Because that law, and the Supreme Court has said, counting people's vote is just like putting the vote in the ballot box. So we shouldn't lose sight of what he just admitted to. He was interrupting the count, and right. It is an admission. But it also goes, if he going and saying, you can have a free speech right to say, I want the vote count blocked.
Right.
But I don't take any act to block it.
Right.
You might argue that that's First Amendment covered free speech. But in this case, we have an indictment that has all the steps of acts, including multiple times Donald Trump personally went to Pence and asked him to do it. And my favorite part of the indictment, my favorite part, because everybody keeps saying, well, but where's the evidence of Donald Trump's intent? Just like Mr. Lauro tried to say, you know, he was just desperately trying to get at the facts, you know, so desperately that every time someone told him, no, those aren't the facts, he ignored them. Right. But my favorite part on the Eastman point is when he's picking and choosing which arguments he likes, which method he likes best for Donald Trump to for Mike Pence to interrupt the vote count. Which one he likes best. Right. It's out of his mouth and direct to asking for an act, making an act himself. Yeah. So, yeah, admission.
And then, Sumi, let me go back to you, because the other piece of it is they keep on trying to say he sincerely believed he won the election and he just wanted to get at the facts. Except that actually isn't true. Here's Cassidy Hutchinson talking about a conversation that she had with Donald Trump and his chief of staff, Mark Meadows. And this is on December 11, 2020. So this is a month after the election, after Texas lost this lawsuit that they were filing, even though it had nothing to do with them. But the Texas AG had filed a lawsuit trying to overturn the election in other states. Here is the conversation as Cassidy Hutchinson related.
So he had said something to the effect of, I don't want people to know we lost, Mark. This is embarrassing. Figure it out. We need to figure it out. I don't want people to know that we lost.
So you all at the January 6th committee talked to her. Presumably, she's going to end up on the stand and say that in front of a jury. So it's going to be difficult to even maintain that, right? That he thought that he won, because he didn't.
I think there are multiple witnesses who will say that there were statements that he made, sometimes just in passing, that made people recognize that he knew that he lost. That's one that you hear from Ms. Hutchinson. I'm sure if Mark Meadows is a cooperating witness, if he takes the stand, he would have additional evidence to that. You also have in the indictment General Milley's statement that will pass this on to the next guy. So these statements, again, show his state of mind, that he knew he lost and he was clinging on to stay in office.
Maya, let me ask you about this post. We did ask Tom Nichols about it a little while ago, but I want to ask you about it as well. I'm going to put it up. If you go after me, I'm coming after you. Now, again, we don't know who he means by you. We don't know what he means. However, this is what Magistrate Judge Moxila Upadhyay warned Trump of, literally, and he said, yes, I understand. Finally, sir, this is the judge, the magistrate judge talking. I want to remind you that it is a crime to try to influence a juror or to threaten or attempt to bribe a witness or any other person who may have information about your case, or to retaliate against anyone for providing information about your case to the prosecution, or to otherwise obstruct the administration of justice. Do you understand these warnings and consequences, sir? Me doing my Rachel Maddow live reading here, dramatic reading. Defendant, yes. Could he be in violation of this judge's order by posting what he posted on his pretend Twitter?
Well, so he certainly could. I mean, I think one of the questions will be what kind of facts and circumstances, you know, can a judge say you just did that? Because, you know, he was very broad. Yes. And I think he was broad intentionally. And this is part of the difficulty when you do obviously have free speech rights, but no, you do not have the rights to violate the law or a judicial order that says don't tamper with witnesses. Is like anything, you want to make sure you have the right amount of proof to balance those two things. But certainly you would start. And you remember we had this with Roger Stone.
Yes.
Too. I mean, this is
crosshairs, the judge's crosshairs.
And you know, so there are all these ways in which you can subtly try to send the signal that is very threatening. And as we know, Donald Trump has the capacity, because of the types of folks, including organized hate groups, who pay attention to his feeds and take action, including violent threats, when he sends out a signal. It's almost like the opposite of the bat signal, right? Yeah. But so we should be very concerned about that. And I would expect the judge to be paying close attention and to be given warnings for anything that looks like it is stepping over.
I wonder, I mean, I wonder about Walt Nauta being next to him. I mean, it's a different trial, but he's like his co-defendant in the trial. He's there standing with him, being his valet in this case. That's all weird, too. I mean, but the free speech thing to me falls apart. You can't get on a plane and say, I'm about to hijack this plane. Like, you're going to get arrested. Free speech doesn't say you can say, I'm going to hijack this plane. You're going to be arrested, right? I mean, there isn't unlimited free speech.
Correct. And that's why, like everything, it's the facts and the circumstances. It's not just whether, if there are words out of your mouth, you can say whatever you want.
Right.
But facts and circumstances matter.
Okay.